The new product video for the new legacy equipped Union Pacific 412-2 3-cylinder steam locomotives. These locomotives are available under product number 6-11342, Union Pacific 412-2, cab number 9004 in the black scheme, 6-11343, UP 412-2 number 9000 in the black scheme, 6-11344, Union Pacific 412-2, cab number 9000 in the Greyhound scheme. Out of the package you will receive the memory module instructions for loading into the cab 2, the locomotive manual, the engine memory module specific to the road name and road number of the locomotive, 2 replacement traction tires, the funnel for adding smoke fluid pipette, and the dummy O-gauge coupler along with the mounting screw to replace the scale coupler on the pilot for double heading with other legacy equipped locomotives. These engines feature die-cast boiler, die-cast frame, die-cast tender, die-cast tender frame, die-cast tender trucks. Pilot truck and trailing truck are also die-cast. They feature a smoking whistle, main stack smoke, legacy rail sounds, legacy control, Odyssey 2 speed control, a coil coupler on the rear of the tender, cab light, front headlight, directional rear headlight, front classification lights, as well as illuminated number boards. The 412-2 steam locomotives are equipped with 2 smoke units. One here on the main stack, which is where the fluid is put in. The exhaust comes out of the main stack. The second smoke unit is located underneath this steam dome. It's a little bit of a challenge to get off, but it does come off. It's just held on with 2 magnets, and this is where the whistle smoke fluid is added. Even though the whistle is way back here by the cab, the smoke fluid gets added here underneath this steam dome. It's a good idea to put just a small drop of smoke fluid on that rubber O-ring to facilitate and helping you get that cap on and off easier, and to prevent it from rolling out of its position. The switches for the locomotive are located underneath the sand dome here in the front, once again held on by magnets. It is a directional dome. It will only go on one way. If you try to put it on wrong, it won't seat properly. Please don't use a hammer. The switches we have on the locomotive, the first switch here is the program run switch. In the program position, that allows you to assign the locomotive ID number in either TMCC or legacy mode. The run position is where you put it to run and operate the locomotive. If you're operating this engine in conventional mode, run is the reverse unit on, so you can cycle through all 4 directional states. If you want to lock it into one direction, you place it in program for conventional operation, and that'll lock the E unit out. Next switch down is the Odyssey 2 speed control on-off switch. In the ODY position, speed control is enabled. In the no ODY position, speed control is disabled. Next switch is main. That'd be the main stack smoke here in the front of the boiler. No smoke is smoke off, and SMK is smoke on. And finally you have AUX, or auxiliary smoke. That would be the whistle smoke. The no smoke is off, and SMK is on. You want to make sure that when you're running this engine, if you want to control the smoke units manually through the cab 2 or cab 1 remote, the switches must be in the SMK position. If you turn the smoke units off with the switch, they cannot be overridden by either the cab 1 or cab 2 remote. There is really only one switch that you'll need to access on the tender of the 412-2, and that would be the volume pot or master volume control. It's located under the rearmost water hatch, and it's the large round thumb wheel. Turning it to the engineer side of the locomotive is up, and towards the fireman side of the locomotive is down. That's the master volume control. You can control the sounds remotely through the cab 1 or cab 2 remote while you're operating the engine. However, if you want the engine to be set at a specific volume all the time, this is the dial you want to use. Set it there, and that'll be your maximum volume when you operate the locomotive. You'll be able to turn it down off the remote, but going up, it will not exceed that maximum voltage that you set. Before we get our locomotive on the track, we want to make sure that we conduct a little preventive maintenance. And this is simply applying some light oil to the moving parts on the steam locomotive to prevent any type of squeaking and help facilitate in the break-in period of the engine. The gearbox is lubricated from the factory. However, you want to make sure that you add a little bit of light oil on the axle for the collector. Just a small drop is all that's necessary on that axle, on all 3 collectors, and just work that in with your fingers. You want to make sure that you also oil the axle of the drivers where it goes through the bearing blocks on the frame, just down inside, a small drop on each axle. You want to do that for all 6 axles on both sides. This is a non-locking gearbox, so you can work this in with your fingers while it's sitting upside down. You're able to rotate these drivers, no problem. Work that oil in. You want to rotate it so you can get to that 3rd cylinder main rod. You want to put a drop of oil on either side of that main rod and work that in. And it's also a good idea to put a small drop of oil down here on the side rods, between the side rod screw and the side rod, just to prevent any type of unwanted squealing from happening. And also on the eccentric between the main rod spacer and the eccentric crank and the main rod itself. And again, work that in. The pilot truck, just a small dab of oil on the axle where it goes through the die-cast pilot frame. Work that in. And again on the bearing between the axle and the bearing on the trailing truck as well. A little bit of preventive maintenance will go a long way in helping create as long a life as possible for this locomotive. We want to also lubricate our tender. Small drop of oil on the collector axle. And work that in. And then finally a small drop of oil where the axle meets the bronze bearing in the side frame on both sides of each truck. Work that in as well. Before we get our Legacy 412-2 on the track, we need to do a couple things beforehand. First, we need to tell the cab 2 the engine number that we're going to assign our Legacy 412-2. Since the cab number is 9004, using our numbering convention of the last 2 digits of the road number, we're going to select engine 4. So on our cab 2, we press engine 4. We then press the info button in the upper right hand corner, and we push the button underneath load. It tells us to insert engine memory module. So using the orange module that came with the locomotive, we insert it into the top of the cab 2 with the silver circle L facing up. It tells us the module is inserted. It's a Union Pacific 11342 412-2 number 9004. Load engine data. Press the yes. Tells us the engine data is loaded, and remove the module to continue. So take the module out, keep it in a safe place, and I'll show you what it's done for us. We press the scroll button in the upper left hand corner. It has set the type to a steam locomotive. Press scroll again. It's set our control to Lionel Legacy. Press scroll again. It's set our sound to Legacy Rail Sounds. To exit the engine menu, we simply press the info button in the upper right hand corner. When we do so, you'll notice the cab number will appear on the screen momentarily, 9004, and it's also set the name Union Pacific 412-2 across the top of the screen. On the touchpad, what this has done for us is it's put in these icons. In the 1 position is volume up, 2 position is crew talk, 3 position is steam let off, 4 position is volume down, the 5 position, When the locomotive is moving, it appears as a black triangle. That's emergency stop. When you stop the locomotive, the round black circle is shutdown. The 6th position is steam blowdown. 7th position is tower comm. The 8th position is smoke off. 9th position is smoke on. There's 3 levels of smoke, low, medium, and high. Smoke off will take you back down to off. You have class lamps on and class lamps off. The 0 position is engine reset. And over here is Rule 17 lighting on and Rule 17 lighting off. We press the speed bar. We have our 6 preset railroad speeds, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. The labor bar graph, which increases and decreases directly proportional to effects up and effects down. You notice when I press effects up, this bar graph will raise and it will say labor increase across the top of the screen. What this will do is this will change the intensity of the chuff as the engine's running, and pressing the effects down button will bring up labor decrease and the bar graph will lower. Number 1 here is roll speed. That's the very first speed step the locomotive will attain. To exit this screen, we simply press aux 1. We get back to the touchpad for the locomotive. Before we actually run the locomotive, we want to make sure that we add smoke fluid to the main stack and the whistle smoke unit. So to do this, we're going to use the smoke fluid pipette that came with the locomotive and some Lionel premium smoke fluid. We're going to fill the pipette with smoke fluid about 3/4 of the way between the end of the pipette to the first line. And just place this pipette all the way down the stack and add the smoke fluid. A couple puffs of air, make sure we break any meniscus that might be covering the exit of the stack. The second place to add fluid is underneath the steam dome here. Pull off the cover. Once again, about 3/4 of the way up the pipette from the end of the first line. Put the pipette in, add the fluid, another couple puffs of air, and we can replace the cover. Now, it is important to note that you want to put just 1 drop of smoke fluid on this rubber O-ring that's on this cover, and that'll help lubricate that O-ring and prevent it from sliding off when you reinsert it back on the boiler. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and program the locomotive. So remove the sand dome here in the front, place the program run switch in the program position. Using our Legacy Cab 2 remote, we're going to go ahead and turn on power. Using our remote, we're going to assign the ID number of 4 to this locomotive. Since the cab number is 9004, we typically use the last 2 digits of the cab number, so we'll make this engine 4. You'll notice as we apply track power that the headlight does not come on, nor does the cab light. There's no sounds. Nothing happens when power is first applied until you address the locomotive. The only light that's illuminated, which you can't see from your vantage point, is the red marker lamp on the rear of the tender is illuminated. So let's go ahead and press engine 4 on our cab 2 and press the set button. Whistle blows to confirm it took the command. You can place the locomotive back in the run position and replace the cover on the sand dome, making sure that all the switches are in run, ODY, smoke, and smoke. Once you've confirmed that, go ahead and put the cover back on. I'm going to go ahead and turn the smoke unit on. By pressing the aux 1 or straight arrow key and the smoke icon 3 times to get us back to smoke high. As you can see, smoke begins to produce out of the main stack. I'm going to go ahead and go through the whistle for you real quick so that you can hear the 3 levels of whistle that we have in this 412-2. As you can see, the whistle smoke is activated when the whistle is activated. Go ahead and run the locomotive. You will notice that there are 6 chuffs per revolution on this 412-2. That is accurate to the prototype. You've got 4 chuffs from the 2 main steam cylinders, and you have an additional 2 chuffs from that 3rd cylinder that's right up underneath the smoke box. The bell. Tower comm.
Dispatcher here. All clear inbound. Over. Clear block. Thanks, dispatcher. Out.
Crew talk.
Dispatcher, are we still clear all the way? Over. Yes, you have a clear track. Over. Copy that. Making good time. Out.
Go ahead and play the squealing brakes for you. When you hit the direction button on the cab 2 remote, the rear light on the back of the tender illuminates. The front headlight on the front of the locomotive stays on all the time. Run the engine in reverse is the same as forward, but we'll do it anyway. These locomotives are equipped with sequence mode. To enter into sequence mode, you simply press and hold the aux1 or straight arrow key for 3 seconds. The locomotive will confirm you've entered sequence mode with 2 quick rings of the bell and a short whistle. I'm going to press the aux1 key now. That tells us that the locomotive is in sequence mode. Now that we're in sequence mode, everything that we do with the throttle will trigger a response in the sound system. So as we go from stop to speed step 1,
Dispatcher, I got a clear signal. Cleared outbound. Over. Roger that. Out.
as we go to speed step 1, nothing will actually start moving on the locomotive. However, it will go through a sequence of sounds. So here's speed step 1. You'll notice I'm not pressing any buttons on the remote. It's doing all of this on its own. Now we're going to go to speed step 2. In sequence mode.
Over. Copy that. Out.
In sequence mode, the sounds are directly responsive to the throttle commands. So between speed steps 2 and 23, the bell is on automatically. You still have manual control over these sounds, so you can shut the bell off, blow the whistle when you want to, or just let it play through its sequence. So we're going to go ahead and get the locomotive up above speed step 23 so we can get this bell to turn off. Now, anytime that the locomotive is running in sequence mode, the longer that it runs, the more sound features it'll play, such as grade crossing whistle sequence. Any changes in the throttle will trigger a response from the sound system. So let's go ahead and just crank the throttle up, see what it does for us. So that whistle blast is automatic based on the throttle response. I'm going to go ahead and turn the throttle down rather rapidly, and you'll see what happens.
Dispatcher, I'm at low speed. Out.
The longer you run the locomotive in sequence mode, the more features or the more sound effects that happen. If you run the locomotive for a very long period of time, it'll start coming on and telling you that you need to get to the coal dock or you need to get to the coal tower, you're going to need water, etc., etc. So a lot of cool stuff in sequence mode. What's nice about it is it allows you to run the locomotive on the layout while you're playing with other locomotives, and you still get all the cool sound effects out of it. So we're going to go ahead and slow the locomotive down. Once I get below speed step 23, the bell will come on, and it'll stay on until we come to a stop.
Dispatcher, we're at a complete stop. Let you know when I'm moving. Out.
Okay, to exit the sequence mode, we simply press the aux1 or straight arrow key and R on the touchpad for engine reset. On a cab 1, this would be aux1 and then 0. Whistle tells us that we've left sequence mode. Now we're back to manual control. If we want to add coal, let's say we pull the locomotive up to a coaling tower and we want to simulate adding coal to the tender, we can do that. That's accomplished by pressing aux1 and pressing and holding the reset button on the cab 2 touchpad. Goes like this. The call sound will play as long as you hold down the reset button. Once you let off reset, it'll stop and you'll get this announcement.
My call's full. Over. Roger that. Out.
We can also add water to the tender as well, and that's accomplished by pressing the aux1 or straight arrow key and what would be the number 3 position or the steam let off position. That sound will play as long as we hold down the icon in the number 3 position. Once we let off, we'll get this sound. So, that's a snapshot of how the Union Pacific 412-2 legacy-equipped 3-cylinder steam locomotives operate and the sounds that they have. These locomotives will be released very soon to your dealers, and we hope you enjoy them.